on DraftKings with 155,000 fans on YouTube, right? I got 10,000, a little over 10,000 right now. We have similar podcast numbers, Mike. What it tells me is one of us is doing this right, doing pretty good, and the other one got fired by the fucking Browns. Welcome back, Giants fans, to another edition, a special edition of the Chuck Knoxx Show. And I mean, if you're looking at the topic right now, the reason you clicked on this video and the reason that it's a special video, we're going cold open right here, is we only have one topic to discuss today, and the headline says it all. This is my response to Michael Lombardi, who decided to get on his platform and take shots at yours truly, as well as Carl Banks. So before we set this up, a couple of questions, and I'm going to run through his clips. I'm going to go through each one of these and show you that Michael is full of shit at best, or a liar. And we're going to go through it. So first and foremost, you're asking yourself, who is Michael Lombardi? A lot of people have no clue. Michael Lombardi is a former NFL executive. He's been around. The guy's resume is incredible, right? He has been around since the early 80s, San Francisco, Raiders, ended his career working with Belichick and the Patriots, and maybe even a few other stops in there. But now he's, of course, an NFL quote-unquote insider and, of course, a podcast host. And so now that you have a background, again, Michael's background is very impressive. There's no disputing that. But why are we here today? Well, we're here today because, as noted, Michael decided to take shots at myself and legendary New York Giant Carl Banks. And I love Carl Banks. This guy's on my wall. Got a poster of him on the wall. Just an all-time Giant. And by the way, a classy dude. Carl's a classy guy. That's not me. I don't mind getting my hands dirty to defend the Giants and the Giants base, especially for somebody that, quite frankly, has no idea what they're talking about. So how did all this start, right? That's what you're tuned in for. How did all this start? Michael goes on the air last week at his podcast at DraftKings and, in my opinion, wanted to have a hot take, as everybody that's in content creation tries to do, is get something that grabs people's attention. And I think Michael tried to put something out there. He knew it was verifiably false. And when he was called out by an enormous amount of Giants fans and a lot more, people who have more clout than I do, I think the reaction was like, oh, wow, this got out of hand. So he was forced to come back and respond on his show this week. Completely backpedals, makes no sense whatsoever, virtually proving that people like myself who said, Michael, you're just trying to come out here and make a statement on something that doesn't exist for headlines. And he proves it. He doubles down on it. But we're going to get into that. To sum it all up, after Daniel Jones got his contract, in Michael's opinion, the locker room doesn't really believe he deserves that money. Therefore, guys who are due big money and who are leaders in the locker room, like Dexter Lawrence and Saquon Barkley, their absence in the voluntary workout that started this week for the New York Giants has everything to do with a bizarre philosophy that Pat Riley, I'm talking Pat Riley, former coach of the Lakers and the Heat and the Knicks, that Pat Riley, this philosophy of the disease of me, that he initially Michael tries to paint the picture that this is a fact. And after getting called out on it, he cowardly backtracks and blames really Pat Riley, I guess, and then beat the shit out of me. And Giants fans, Michael Lombardi is universally disliked amongst the Giant base. There's a running theme that this guy didn't get a job with the Giants, was overlooked for something, because there's a bitterness. Whenever Michael talks about the Giants, there's a bitterness. I'm not even going to play the full clip, because the full clip from last week's show it's one thing after another. It's not just making the point of what he thinks is going to happen in the locker room and in the future. It's the fact that the Giants got their ass kicked. We didn't beat anybody last year. We just basically messed around and found ourselves in the playoffs. And you could make that analogy. You could make that comment, but you would be completely wrong, but you'd still make it. Here's what he had to say, which led to all of this, and then we'll play his responses, which are complete garbage. But here's how this whole thing started last week.
This is more about Pat Riley's The Disease of Me. This is the challenge that Brian Daboll has, and he should have known it the minute he walked off the field in Philadelphia when he got his ass kicked by the Eagles, right?
Yeah.
He got his ass kicked by the Eagles, okay? And so he walks in there, and he's got this delicate balance of, we've made progress, but we just got our ass kicked. So how do I treat the offseason? They have fallen into the Pat Riley trap of Disease of Me. So if you look at Riley, and if you read anything on the great Pat Riley, is, he talks about the disease of me is basically 7 tangents. It's inexperience in dealing with sudden success. It's chronic feeling of underappreciation, right? It's paranoia over being cheated out of one's rightful share, okay? It's resentment against the competence of the compensation of partners, okay? It's personal effort mustered solely to outshine a teammate. It's a leadership vacuum resulting from the formation of cliques and rivalries. And it's feeling of frustration even when the team performs successfully. Every one of those, I could give you an example within the Giants. Okay, let's go to 6. A leadership vacuum resulting in the formation of cliques and rivalries, right? You paid Daniel Jones, but now you're not going to pay Saquon. You're not going to give Dexter. Everybody in that locker room knows the reason they won wasn't because of Daniel Jones. He had something to do with it, but he didn't carry the team. The players know this. You can't con the players. They know this.
Now, before we finish, right there, Michael emphatically states, everybody in the Giants locker room knows the reason we won was not because of Daniel Jones. Now, Michael goes on throughout the show to embarrass himself and act like he watched every Giants game, etc. Daniel Jones, if you watch the games, Daniel Jones, the Giants had, I think, 39, around 39, 40, 38 touchdowns, okay? Daniel Jones is responsible for 22 of them. You want to tell me that Daniel Jones isn't a major reason that the Giants had a successful season last year? You really want to tell people that the entire locker room looks at Daniel Jones, who's the absolute unquestioned leader in the locker room, that he's not a major reason for last year? They don't think that he earned that contract? But this is another lie that Michael gets caught into. We'll address that again later. Let's finish his clip. Finish his bullshit.
And so this is what happens. And they didn't win enough, and they're not good enough as a team to be able to kind of go through this. Like, they didn't win a championship. They won 9 freaking games and beat a shitty Minnesota team and got their ass kicked. They're not good enough to have the disease of me.
So the Giants, in his mind, never mind we don't address the fact that this is a team over the last 5 years, worst team in the National Football League. You can count on one hand in the last few seasons that the Giants, 2 seasons in a row, you can count on one hand how many wins they had. And then they come back, new regime, new everything. And bam, they get the best out of what they had to work with. And they wind up in the playoffs. Oh, by the way, went to Minnesota on the road and beat the Vikings. But we're going to act like that's not impressive because Kirk Cousins or some nonsense. Like Minnesota in the playoffs on the road is not a hostile environment for a team that hasn't even been in the playoffs in 6 years or won a playoff game in over a decade, Michael? Not impressive? Okay. And Michael goes on to say that what he would have done is, of course, sign Saquon long-term and then let Daniel go out and see what he could have got on the market and bring him back. And again, the problem is the Giants already had a set number that they were going to give Daniel Jones. Both parties were not too far apart all offseason. So that's irrelevant. And here's where Michael is showing the fact that, luckily for some teams, that he's not in the NFL anymore, because he would have paid Saquon before the market was even tested. You would have locked Saquon up for how much, Mike? 16 mil a year? Where are we going? 20? Well, instead, Joe takes the smart route, signs basically Daniel Jones to a 2-year deal, 82 guaranteed contract, 82 mil. If things don't work out after 2 years, boom, cut your ties. But instead, the running back market, as everybody saw unfold, was nowhere near what anybody thought it would be. But somebody like Michael Lombardi would have just said, screw it, give him the bag. And that was basically that chunk of that clip right there that was spread around every Giants circle on Twitter, Facebook, you name it. Everybody was talking about this. Current Giant media, former Giants players, everybody in the Giant family, Giants fans, everybody was talking about it. It gets passed on to me. And now we're going to go into why we're here, because why Michael brought me into this. Now, I will admit, I started this. In a sense, I started it. He started it only because he said something completely ridiculous and not true and created a narrative for his podcast. And it just so happened to be my response was the response he had a problem with. Now, I will admit, I came in with a little heat on my fastball. Because if you're going to create a false narrative on the Giants, and as anybody that knows me and follows me, I am beyond passionate about the Giants. I will defend them to the death. Now, here is my tweet. This is what really set Michael off. And I'm going to read this. It's on the screen, but I'm going to read it anyway. If you're in the podcast, if you're in the audio podcast, this is what I said. Quote, yesterday, a video of NFL quote-unquote insider Michael Lombardi was making the rounds amongst Giants fans and news outlets. I'm not going to share it because I don't want to give any more traffic to a complete bullshit story. Michael is a guy with no knowledge whatsoever of the Giants locker room and the pulse of the team. His story that the Daniel Jones contract has divided the team after leaders like Dex and Saquon were not taken care of in the same manner is absolute trash. Anyone familiar with the team knows this is nonsense, and the Giants staff members have blasted the reporting. I talked on the podcast this week that the type of coverage is precisely what the Giants don't want. This gives low-life reporters the ability to craft any narrative they want to feed red meat to the wolves out there who want to see cracks in the Giants' foundation, especially if they can tie it back to Daniel Jones. Michael Lombardi is a disgrace for going with this story, and our fans should know better to question what type of leaders that we have in the locker room. So I was nice. I mean, I was as nice as I could be for somebody that has that type of platform and wants to push a full-on, flat-out lie. So did I think, yeah, I came in a little hot. I expected some blowback. And Mike heard it and responded accordingly. So now, a week later, Mike jumps on his podcast, and last night I'm sitting here in my Giants headquarters, and I start getting a couple of tweets, start getting a couple of notifications, because apparently, the few people that do listen to Mike's podcast, I think 7 of them are fans of mine.
Like, all I'm saying is, and I stand by what the hell I'm saying, if I were an executive at the Giants, I'd be worried like hell that everybody's going to want to get paid. Everybody's going to be satisfied with 9 wins when Brian Daboll knows more than anybody. I mean, I love Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll's a wonderful friend. He knows this. He knows the enemy that he has to defeat is contentment.
Mm-hmm. It's within.
It's within.
Yeah.
Like, why are they so outraged by this?
So pause that there. So the Giants have their first winning season in almost more than half a decade. About half a decade. And the notion is we are so satisfied after 9 wins, let's just pay everybody and give up. That's and then goes on to praise Daboll as if Daboll is going to let this happen. Daboll's your friend, but you're going to convince people that Brian Daboll is going to say, you know what, guys, I hope you're not going to get satisfied on 9 wins. And again, if you had a pulse, you knew anything about this team, you would know that's the complete opposite of what is preached and what is known in the locker room. Let's listen. So play the clip. Let's hear. I'll play the whole thing here. In this next few minutes, I'll shut up. But there's a couple things that we have to tear apart right here.
Do you want to respond to that? Because the last time we did
I don't have to respond to it. They don't understand what I'm saying. Like,
we'll break it down to them.
Well, they're actually saying that I'm reporting this. I mean, I love Carl Banks to death, and he's saying, you know, you got to be in the locker room to know. I'm not talking about their locker room.
He was throwing fire. Let me pull up
I'm
the tweet
talking
here. About
what happens when teams have to go from good to great. Read Riley's book, The Winner Within. I didn't make this up.
No.
I didn't. I read you the 7 symptoms of that, and it applied to the Giants. Like, I don't understand, like, how this 9-win team. Carl said you didn't watch any game. I watched every freaking game.
So first off, it wasn't an observation, and you were reporting it. You stated flat out again that the Giants, that this was an issue in the locker room. You stated it. I already played the clip. You stated that the players are looking at Daniel Jones and that this is how they feel about Daniel Jones. You said that. And by the way, in the previous week, you doubled down on it 3 minutes later by saying it again, that this is how the locker room feels.
Dayball's got to do a job of managing this moving forward, or else this is just going to splinter.
So again, the players know this in the locker room. Not an observation. You're reporting this as fact, and you know it. But you don't have the balls and the credibility to stand on it because you got called out on it, and all of a sudden your credibility was called into question, as it should be. Now here's where Michael doubles down on his bullshit after he's called out on it, had a chance to say, yeah, I stepped in something here. I shouldn't have said what I said. People, he had a chance. Instead, he doubles down on it, but doesn't own it. Right? He doesn't own it, and then punches down at somebody like myself who he thinks is on such a lower platform that I won't take shots at Carl Banks, but I'll beat the shit out of this guy. Bad news for Michael. I don't mind a good punch in the face every once in a while. I don't mind a good fight, Mike.
I mean, how about the guy that says, I didn't want to share Lombardi's tweet. It was so terrible. I didn't want to give it any credit. You got 3,000 fucking followers. What do I give a shit about your sharing my tweet? Like, I give a shit.
Now this part, that's right there. The only part, nothing that he said about me irritates me or pisses me off. This is strictly about the lie and the narrative that he was pushing out there. But I have to admit, I was shocked that he follow shamed me. Right? He follow shamed me on the platform of Twitter, which is the one platform that I'm trying to grow the most right now. Takes a shot at my follower count. So, Mike, here's the thing, brother. Your resume speaks for itself, right? You have all that experience in the NFL. That's your lane, right? The NFL. My lane is this. This is my lane. Content creation and social media. So you're stepping into my lane, and I'm going to educate you real quick. The reason that we're talking right now, back and forth, and the reason that we've taken shots at one another is because you saw my tweet. You know why you saw my tweet? Because it went viral. It went viral because although that platform only has 3,000 fans to your 155, my engagement and my reach is double yours. And you know why that is? Because people don't give a shit about what you have to say. That's why. You have a reputation of talking out of your ass and saying things you can't even back up, or just having an opinion that nobody cares about. The only reason that we're talking about this right now is because you created a false narrative. So yeah, Mike, punch down at me all you want to. That doesn't mean anything to me. I could have 300 followers, 30 followers, and I can guarantee you that 30 of those followers are going to know that everything I say is at least rooted in reality. You can't say the same for yourself, Mike.
I've been yelled at by Al fucking Davis, okay? Like, there's no smarter human being on planet Earth in football than Al Davis, right? Like, I stood in a room with him. I went toe-to-toe with him. Like, I can handle myself. Like, I'm not worried about your 3,000 followers and what you think you fucking know, right? Like, You have no idea. You don't even know half of what the fuck I know, all right? So let's just put that out there, okay?
You're caught multiple times and you're hoping, you know what? If I just punch down at this guy, make fun of this guy, it will all go away. It's not going to go away. And quite frankly, since you want to bring up numbers and that's important to you, that really got under your ass, right? That the 3,000 mark, that really got under your ass. You're on DraftKings, primarily because of who you are, your name, and you're on DraftKings with 155,000 fans on YouTube, right? I got 10,000, a little over 10,000 right now. We have similar podcast numbers, Mike. What it tells me is one of us is doing this right, doing pretty good, and the other one got fired by the fucking Browns. So let's talk about your experience. You know more football than me. Maybe you do. I won't question it. You got a pretty impressive resume. I mean, you've had tutelage under Bill Walsh, Al Davis, Bill Belichick. These are titans of the game. Brilliant minds. But what happened, Mike, when you had to step out behind those guys, when you had to step out in front of them and be your own man? You had to do that one time. What happened? You got fired. You went to Cleveland and you collapsed like a fucking lawn chair with Chris Christie sitting in it on a beach. So I don't know why my platform bothers you so much and where it's at on a scale to yours, but it shouldn't. You should just be happy that you piggybacked yourself off of multiple titans of the industry and rode their coattails to where you can now have this platform that you have right now. And I say that with as much respect as you've shown the Giants, the fans, for putting out this bullshit story, and myself. The bottom line here, you have a platform, you have a voice, and you used it, as you should. But you got caught in a lie, which we have verifiably proven. You can backtrack all you want. You're going to say, I wasn't reporting anything. I've just been on tape multiple times saying that this is exactly how the locker room feels. But now that I'm caught on it, I'm going to be a coward and backpedal. That's the Mike Lombardi way. Like, I respect you. You should have had the integrity to come out and say, yeah, I stepped in it here. I messed up on that one. I spoke and people took it the wrong way. But that's not what you did. You backtracked. You made yourself sound completely stupid. And then you punched down at a guy that you think has no platform. So I just wanted to come on, clear that up, and respond. I had no idea this week that I would have to be recording a special edition of the Chuck Knoxx Show, specifically about Michael Lombardi, his shots at me, and the lies he told about the New York Football Giants. But hopefully this sends a message. Look, you got a platform, and you got a podcast, you got a website, whatever it is in social media, don't do clickbait shit. If you can't stand behind it, we need to rid ourselves of that. It's an enema of this field. We need to purge ourselves of these garbage takes. I thank you guys for listening to this. I hope Mike Lombardi finds himself at ease with his 155,000 followers and his bed of lies, and he's comfortable. As far as the Giants go, again, April, don't sweat it. Saquon Barkley, Dexter Lawrence will both be here when it matters and when it counts. And we'll have to move on to the next anti-Daniel Jones story that we can tie back to Jones to make him look like shit and create the narrative that the anti-Jones cult wants to paint, right? Rinse and repeat. But sooner or later, all these people, all these talking heads are going to have nothing to say. They're going to eat their words about Daniel Jones, and you have to create a new narrative. So hopefully that puts that to bed, and people like Michael Lombardi going forward can learn to tell the truth, or at least stand by the lies that you've told. Till the next time, Giants fans, as always, you know where to find me. Facebook, YouTube, Mr. Chuck Knoxx. Twitter with the 3,000 followers. TikTok and Instagram at Chuck Knoxx. And, of course, the Chuck Knoxx Show is available wherever you get your podcasts. I will be back this weekend for the big draft show, only talking the draft. No more talking about talking heads that don't tell the truth. So that's coming this weekend. So until then, Giants fans, I'll see you very soon. And I am